This is what was one of my biggest motivation to stay here, to help Olim Chadashim. Isaiah, he says, one day there will be a road from Syria to Egypt, through Jerusalem, and Israel, the Assyrians and Egypt, they're gonna have a covenant together, and it will be a blessing for all the world.
Great. This is awesome. How are you feeling?
Fine. Yeah, it's
Good.
great. It's great.
It's different. Have you ever done anything like this?
No, I just love to listen to podcasts. So to do one is awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
What kind of podcasts do you like to listen to?
Many different. I like to listen to politics, especially right now to the Germans, because they have a lot of going on over there in political movements, but also to philosophic point of views of society, and then of course podcasts on believing in God, on how to look on life, and
Well, I'm going to look over here and introduce you.
yeah.
It is an honor to have my friend Philipp joining us today on the podcast. Philipp works for NGO Switzerland. He served in the Swiss Army as a first lieutenant in an infantry unit. He's been living in Israel on and off for the past 30 years, and will be moving back to Switzerland next month. How are you feeling about moving back?
Well, it's like a white page for me. I was, beside of serving in the army, I was never deep into society in Switzerland. I am Swiss, I have a Swiss passport, but I feel kind of strange to move there. It's not moving back, it's moving to. And we'll see. I have no clue how it's gonna turn out, how it's gonna be, but
What does that mean? You weren't like in Swiss society? Like you were born there, you grew up there.
I was born there.
I'm just assuming you grew up there.
No. And when I was 9 years old, my parents they made a huge step. I'm very proud of them till today. And they took us, the whole family, and we moved to Israel. And my parents, they started to work for the same NGO like I do now.
Wow. So you've been in Israel since you were how old?
9.
So you're like Israeli.
No, that's the weird point. Here, they call me the Swiss. In Switzerland, they call me the Israeli. So
you're like a nomad?
yeah, right.
Yeah, still trying to find a home.
One of my friends, he said, yeah, you belong to the desert generation. Not there yet.
Not what?
Not there yet.
Oh.
So it's, yeah.
Is there any place, do you feel that's more home, whether it's Switzerland or Israel?
No, I wouldn't say, because I was living in between for several years in France. I was 1 year in Lebanon, and I think I feel at home when I feel at home with the people, and not especially the place.
So can you tell me then about like your life and moving all over, like what you've done, moving all over the place? How many languages do you speak?
I'm not that good in languages, I have to say.
Oh, okay.
But I speak Hebrew, English, Swiss German, which is like German, kind of. I had to learn German in school, because in Switzerland you don't have books in the Swiss German. So
In school you don't have...
Swiss German books. The Swiss German language is not written. It's just...
Really?
Yes. Yeah, it's funny.
Why?
I don't know. It's they say it's like an ancient version of the Germans, but we were in the mountains, so we missed how the language developed.
So in school you guys just read plain German?
Yes.
Wow. All right, so your parents picked you? How you have siblings?
Yes, I
So
have four.
your parents picked you and your siblings up and moved to Israel.
Yes.
Was this the first move that you guys did, or did you guys move other places before you moved to Israel?
No, that was the first move, yeah.
Okay, so tell me what your childhood was like. Tell me what your childhood was like, especially what year was this?
94.
Okay.
My childhood was actually one big adventure for me. We First year we lived in an Arab quarter in Jerusalem, and we're surrounded by Arab speaking people. And actually, it was kind of funny to get into this society as a kid. At the same time, it was also um, not too safe, and I felt not safe at all, especially when the time of the Intifada started. And then we moved to the Jewish side in Talpiot, and we went to school, to a Swiss school, private school, a very small one, with a bus. And it was a time where a lot of bombings happening in the buses. And I remember the feeling to going on a bus, not knowing how it's coming out. At the same time, it was also I learned already in that time that the main force I can build on is the trust in God, and I think it's still the main force I try to stick on to.
But how was you mentioned that you lived in the Arab quarter in the old city.
Not in the old
Not in
city,
the old city.
no,
Where?
near Abu Tor.
Near Abu Tor. Why didn't it feel safe?
Um, we had to walk to school, and we we had we invited the kids to our place, and you could feel the difference between the cultures.
Between the Arab culture
Yeah,
and okay.
and our culture. And also I learned that from their perspective, if you are not an Arab, you are free to hunt. Well, let's say it plain. At the same time, they were very friendly, but it could change very quickly.
That's an interesting.
Yeah.
The free to hunt, but yet they're friendly at the
Yeah.
That's really.
If you're on a protection of one guy, let's say you visit some of your neighbors, you feel safe. But if you're not like connected to, and especially when they think you are kind of the enemy or a part of the enemy, it's can get changed very quickly.
Did you not feel you said that you noticed that the cultures were different. Did you not feel that way when you moved to the Jewish side of town?
I felt another difference, let's say. Of course, I would say the Israeli.
You're not Jewish.
No.
Okay.
I would say the Israeli culture is much closer to the European one. It's much more open, and in this quarter where we lived, we had a good relationship to the neighbors. But at the same time, I knew I didn't belong here fully. Part of it was the language. In that time, my Hebrew wasn't that good, and also my English wasn't developed. But I would say I felt more safe because they didn't thought that I belonged to the enemy. Yeah.
So tell me about your time in Israel as a kid, and then why did you guys end up moving? Where did you move to after Israel?
Oh,
because you mentioned you bounced from to France to Lebanon.
When I finished school in the Swiss private school, I went back to Switzerland alone. I was living with with friends of us, a family, and I had to move there to for the studies and then for the army service, which is has to be done for every Swiss.
Did you have to move back to do the army service?
Yes.
How was that? How was that
No,
experience?
well, they don't force you to come back,
Mhm.
but if you're there, you have to. Yeah.
Did you feel any type of we call it a kesher, like a relationship with Israelis when you came back after serving in the army, knowing that in Israel there's also mandatory service?
Oh yes, a lot. Because when I came back after military service, I started to help in a home for lonely soldiers, and it was easy to make connection with them to get um get a talk when I mentioned that I was an officer.
What was your army service like?
Swiss Army is like very precise, very short. A normal soldier does 6 months boot training, and that's it actually. And then you have to make the miluim, as you call it in Hebrew, every year. But because the program is very like it's already on paper, the whole program for the 6 months, and you know every day what you have to do. And that's why they move very quickly. And especially because when you start with the army, you have the Bagrut, or you already have finished your apprenticeship. So in my unit, we have mechanics, we have engineers, we have electronic guys, we have drivers, we had medics. They were already like done with learning their job. So you had a lot of know-how, and there was no problem you couldn't solve with that know-how. So that's the great plus of the Swiss Army.
How long do you have to be like back in Switzerland for miluim?
Um,
Like how long? Like when does your service conclude?
um, Depends. You have two options. If you like sign in Switzerland, like after 2 weeks in Switzerland, you have to sign in. I'm back, and then the army calls. You have to serve on that and that period of time. So in the last 30 years, I spent several years in Switzerland, and when I am there, I have to serve until I would say this is my last year. I have to.
So when you go, so wait a minute, do you travel back and forth to do your miluim?
No,
Okay,
no,
but when you go back, are you gonna have to do it?
it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my last year. They could take me in
Well,
because I turned 40. So on 40's last year, they can.
yeah, that's when you
So
become elderly in
yeah,
Switzerland.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I feel already now like a grandpa in the army because in my age there is nobody serving at all in my rank. Usually they are done before because it goes according to days of serving.
So excuse my ignorance. Yeah, please excuse my ignorance. But did you have to serve in any wars or anything like that? Any fighting?
I could, but I haven't.
You could, but you
Yeah,
haven't.
yeah. You could sign in for the units in Kosovo, which Switzerland has one battalion over there, or had. I'm not sure if they still have. And it's like they pay really well. And
Where is this? Kosovo?
yeah, it's near Albania,
Okay.
East Europe.
Why there specifically?
It's a peace force unit.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, but I never was interested in that.
So, okay, so you did your army service, and where did that take you afterwards?
After army service, that was my big question actually when I have finished first like serving. What shall I do now? The world was open to me because I am Swiss. So with the Swiss passport, there is almost no country where you could not get started.
Really?
Yeah, that's cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. And also there are companies that hire you as a Swiss to work abroad. And so the world was open to me. Like I first plans were to head to Cuba and be being an ambulance driver over there because situation there was cruel, and I thought maybe it's a good place to invest in human beings. But then a friend of mine, he invited me to spend 1 year with him at his family here in Jerusalem and help them in actually the same NGO where I'm now. And I said, okay, why not? Let's head back. Let's try. And it was a great year.
So eh, I'm curious because you said you went to France and Lebanon. Like, what was your experience in Lebanon? Like, what brought you to Lebanon?
It was a partner NGO of the NGO that I work now, and they started their work among the refugees of Syria. So and so they asked me, "Do you want to join?" And I said, "Why not?" And I like adventures. I am curious, and I like people. So I was there almost 1 year.
What was it like? What was it like? Was it like working with them? What was the culture like?
It was in the beginning. It was I was I was stunned. It was too much. We were very close to the Syrian border. War was happening, just like you could see it from our place. You heard the bombing and the planes, and
What year was this?
this was 2015, 16. Yeah, and and in the valley between Lebanon and Syria, or just around, just on the border, there were all the camps,
The refugee camps.
refugee camps. Yeah, a lot, and not very well organized. Like, yeah, that was tough to see. Oh, I was living in a Christian neighborhood, and in Lebanon, everybody sticks to their society. So in
Like
our
very tribal.
kind of more the religion tribal. Like my Christian neighbors, they would never allow a Muslim to stay with them. Never. Once a family tried, and neighbors went there, knocked on the door, said, "Tomorrow you're gone. If not, we come back with weapons." So they went. The priest in the same quarter, he said, "I'd like to have some refugees on the land of the church, Syrian Christians." No way, no chance. They
Syr-
forced him to shut down the program.
Wait, say this again. The church wanted to have Syrian Christian refugees in the church, but
On the land
on
of the
the
church.
but they said no.
No way.
But why if they're both Christian?
Good questions. I think it was mainly because Syria was occupied Lebanon for 11 years until they had to move out. So, and they weren't very friendly. So there is like a big defense motivation and a lot of bloody memories.
It's just something that I find interesting because when October 7th happened,
Yes.
we saw uh, a lot of Israelis, a lot of Jewish people who served in the army coming back to fight alongside their brethren
Mm-hmm.
in the want to protect their homeland and protect their people. Um, if anybody's been looking at the news, especially with the downfall of Assad in Syria, there's a lot of war and murder and slaughter of Christians within Syria.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why the Christian world is not standing up to come and fight for their brethren. And I could say the same thing about the Muslim world when it comes to, the Palestinians. Whatever I feel about what's happened in Gaza or anything like that. It's just I find it interesting that, you know, our people are so it's almost like the Jewish people seem there's an innate thing to come and protect each other,
Hmm.
where it doesn't necessarily seem that way for the Christians or the Muslims.
Um, yeah, that's a difficult question. I would say because it is mixed with national thinking.
Mm.
You are, first of all, you are Syrian and then you are a Christian, or first of all, you are Lebanese and then you are a Christian. Second, I would say is a lot of fear. Here, you help the the main system to keep it in place, let's say, but you are the main force, like you are still in top of the church. And the Christians in Syria, they are way below, like they are still it's very
Right. So it
hard.
wouldn't be like if say uh, let's just use Swiss,
Yes.
because if we said Switzerland's considered a would be considered a Christian country.
uh
I just kind of look at Europe and like, okay, Europe's supposed to be Christian, right?
yeah, no, no, it changed a lot. For me, I made a change just recently. I had a discussion with my wife. They changed, for example, that's the thing that is going on right now in Europe. You have Easter. Okay, it just happened, and one of the great like markets, and they said we don't call the Easter bunny anymore Easter bunny. We call them sitting bunny and standing bunny, or I don't know how to
What?
translate.
Where is this? What is this? What?
So they are in a move. There is moving like from the traditionally Christian like thinking and traditions, and they try to step away from it.
Mm.
So I wouldn't consider um, Switzerland as a Christian country.
Well, so, but okay, so let's just take a Christian country.
Yeah.
I think that's what I struggle with sometimes, is that I do believe that places like America and the countries in Europe, they've moved away from, it seems like moved away from Christianity, which pretty much seemed to dominate Europe for decades and centuries.
I would agree. They move back and like they make distance between it. And the point where I stand now is when you go back in history, at the time of the Romans of Constantine, he was the first who made the church or the Christianity to the religion of a state, and I would say it was the biggest mistake
Mm.
because when you look into the New Testament, you never see that it should be a nation behind your belief. Jesus never was criticizing the Romans for what they do, neither the others. He was trying to motivate them to behave like he does, to love, and that's it. He uh, and Paul added to it, there is not in first place a Swiss, he didn't say Swiss, but there is not Swiss or a German or a Jew or an Israeli or no. First is your relationship to God. That's it.
So so my first thing that I was trying to get to was that if there was a Christian country that say they decided to go to Syria to try to help the Christians in Syria, it would kind of be like a declaration of war then.
Yes.
Yeah. That's rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like caught between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, and you couldn't. It doesn't fit. You actually, I believe you cannot go to war in the name of of Jesus or of Christianity. It doesn't work. How?
Didn't they do that during the Crusades?
Yes, of course. Constantine was the first one who went to war with a cross as a symbol, and there he changed actually the cross as a symbol of freedom of life to a symbol. We belong. We are a nation. We are going to war under the cross, and it's like a no-go. It's like you're lying to what you believe.
How so?
How can you love your enemy, like Jesus said, if you kill them?
I hear.
Yeah.
I find it interesting because I haven't even talked or brought up Torah or Bible yet, and it seems like it just kind of like comes out of you. Do you look at life through? I mean, I guess you must, but I just want to through like a Christian lens through the New Testament.
Um, Depends. If I would say yes, then everybody has a kind of a picture how it should be. If I think on a Muslim, I immediately see kind of Taliban or whatever picture. So
Do you think that's just
that's us. That's us. If you say Swiss, you see Alps. That's human being. We are
or
very
chocolate?
yeah chocolate cheese, and we are kind of very narrow perspective on each other. But I would say I try to put the Jewish scriptures of Moses and the prophets and the books of David and so on. I would put them together with the New Testament.
Why?
Because in how I see it, how I understand the scriptures, the Messiah was mentioned in from the beginning on. When God has spoken to Adam and Eve when they had to leave the garden, he said to the woman, the snake will bite you in your foot and you will crush, he said.
Where does it say this?
In the beginning.
In the beginning? Hold on, wait. I have it right here. Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see, because I've read this a couple times, and I don't remember it ever saying that the snake would bite Eve. So we have.
It's not the word bite. It's like to pierce your foot. I don't know if I find.
We're gonna look this up.
Yeah.
We're gonna look this up. Let's see. 3:15.
Yes.
Oh, I see. I skipped over it. Let's see. The sinners are punished. Accursed are you beyond all the cattle and beyond all beasts of the field. Upon your belly shall you go, and dust shall you eat all the days of your life. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will pound your head, and you will bite his heel. Okay.
Not she. The woman does destroy the snake, but her offspring. So already there is the picture starting to rise. There will be one who will overcome evil, who will defeat evil.
Because they're bashing the head of the snake.
Yeah.
But my question then would be, right? Why does the bashing of the head of the snake come before God saying, and he'll bite your heel? Why isn't it he'll bite your heel and then you smash the head of the snake? it seems like, and this is just my thought, and if there's a rabbi listening to this or someone listening to this who has commentary on this, that it should be reversed. It shouldn't be that you'll bash the head of the snake and then the snake will bite your heel. It should be reversed. It should be he'll bite your heel, then you'll pound the head of the snake.
I would say it has to do. I'm not a rabbi, nor I'm deep into that, but I would say the biting of evil still happens. We, as I see it, we are in a world that is pierced or is day by day is damaged by evil. And evil is, I would say, has different ways, but one of the ways I would say is through humans who are doing bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that in families, but the main, I would say, the Messiah is still the one that the main force or the main character of evil he should overcome as the offspring of evil. And then it goes on. That's why we started there, why I connect the two scriptures together.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe deeply in the stories. I believe that.
Do you believe they're real?
I believe they are real, like stories are real. Like
what does that mean?
That mean if sometimes when my son tells me how far he jumped, he tells me the truth according to him.
Mm-hmm.
But I know he doesn't jump 2 meters, like he's 6 years old. So, but still, it's the point of view, and I would never put the scriptures in a place where I have to prove it in terms of science that exactly this happened. And especially because it was written, I believe it's inspired by God, but it's written by human beings. Okay, so and human and
this is a search that I'm searching for.
Yes,
you know,
and our language has very very narrow borders. Sometimes when I try to translate Swiss German into another language, they just haven't that word, and they were living in different times, different cultures, and it's very hard for us to dive into that and to overcome our own thinking and our own perspective of view. For example, we have a much more individualistic kind of way of looking to the world than they had in this time. The tribe or family was much more important than you. And today, I am important. My family, who cares? I mean, my family, the close one, of course. But my uncles, and so it's far away.
What has you so convinced that like the New Testament and the Torah should go together? Because it's this is where I get hung up, right? And I mean this with all due respect. I don't know if you wanted to come on the podcast, not only to talk but to preach about Jesus. I don't know.
No. I try.
And I mean that respectfully, because the podcast is not meant to preach religion or anything like that. It's really to be able to learn and be able to formulate my own perspective.
Absolutely.
You know?
This is what I like. It's my perspective. I have many friends who have a different view on that.
Well, it's a struggle that I have because there's so much information, especially with the internet. There's so much information out there. Don't necessarily know what's real. Don't necessarily know what's true. Don't necessarily know what's fact. So I struggle, and I wonder if other people have this struggle of formulating my own opinion. And I'm tired of feeling like a sheep.
Yeah.
I'm tired of feeling like I'm just going along with what it is, and I need to figure out how to formulate my own opinion. Now, the issues that I have
Mm-hmm.
in regards to the New Testament
Yes.
and the Torah
Mm-hmm.
is that I believe that you can anything that came after the Torah,
Mm-hmm.
let's do Tanakh.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that comes after Tanakh, including the prophets and the writings,
Mm-hmm.
you already have the blueprint technically for what Mashiach is supposed to be, for what the Messiah is supposed to
Mm-hmm.
be. And you could technically write a book based on the information that this is giving you and just make it up. Like with Harry Potter,
Yeah.
and I mean this respectfully. I
Yeah. Yeah.
don't mean this
No.
at
No. No.
all in
No. No.
disrespect or anything like that. If I gave you the first Harry Potter book,
Yeah.
and then I was like, okay, now write another book
Mm-hmm.
with the information that I gave you, you could do it.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't necessarily.
Absolutely.
You couldn't necessarily. I have this idea about Harry Potter. I'm not going to tell you anything about it. Go.
Yeah.
You know. Then it's just the first book. So that's something that I struggle that doesn't necessarily jive with me when it comes to the New Testament or the Quran or anything that's come after the Tanakh,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to fit it in because it's already there. You can fit something in.
I would say nobody had imagined the outcome of what, let's say, the picture for me especially because I served in the army. I was like trained, be stronger, be tougher, go for it, you can do it. And I was in officer school. I was on the top. When I had my own platoon, I lost it because
What you lose?
I lost the top. I was not on the top anymore.
You got
I got lower in the ranking, not rank on the shoulders, but because I was struggling with the problems that my soldier had in their lives. I saw they have problems in their families. They have problem with their girlfriend. They have problem even to get along in their life crisis. And they were like 18, 19, and we haven't been on war. And I was trying to help them, and I couldn't help them in terms of military style. So I took the time to just talk, and I lost the force or the power of the commanding officer because I was too close to them.
So they ranked you lower because of this?
In the Swiss Army, you have like every several weeks you have like a talk with your commanding officer, and then he says, "Okay, you are here. You have good leading, you have good results in the tests, and so on." It doesn't turn, or it doesn't have influence on your rank that you already have, but it has influence on the rank you can go to. And it went down for sure. And what I love on the idea that Jesus brought up was he humbled himself. He didn't come with force. He actually he lost. He was not the great victorious hero that everybody was looking for, and he was not the great warrior king like David was. And David was the one who was writing deeply on how the Messiah will be, and at the same time he saw that. I think in one of the Psalms he mentioned it. What are you looking for, God? You are looking for a crushed heart and open hands. It's in my own words. I cannot say it exactly, but this is what when it comes back to the Christian nation, it's always, if you have a nation, you have to defend it and you have to go to war. You have to make sure that your goals are done, you economy and all the others. And Switzerland, they they are not better or worse than others. They have done a lot of evil, and they still do, like everybody else. My problem starts there when you come and say it's in the name of, or because we are a Christian nation, we can or we cannot.
A lot of people do stuff in the name of God, though, that I think gives a bad name to the Rebbeinu Shalom, to the creator of the universe, the
Yeah,
master of the universe.
yeah, for sure.
But I'm curious that how, I mean, you've been in Israel for so long, right? Which means you've been around Jews for for like a long time. I don't know whether to say sorry or I hope you've enjoyed it. But like like has the Jewish culture at all influenced you?
Yes, a lot.
How so?
I would say feasts.
Feasts?
Feasts.
Like
Feasts
Pesach?
are, yeah, like Pesach,
You
like
just like to eat,
Shavuot.
huh?
No, but they are, I would say, still is one of the treasures in Judaism. Um, because you tell the story what happened, and there are a lot of connections if you look deep to it, like Pesach. Okay, you have the outcome of Egypt, like to be freed from slavery.
Mhm.
It happened at the exact time when Jesus was dying on the cross. So it was the outgoing of slavery, of the sin. So for me, it's like it was like a realizing that the roots are more deep to it.
I don't know how you get there. I don't see the connection between the Exodus from Egypt to Jesus dying on the cross. I more see the connection between um, the like George Washington and the first people who traveled from Britain to the States to colonize America, because they were leaving an oppressive monarchy, and I believe they really connected with the Exodus. But I don't see how Jesus dying on the cross is connected to the Exodus at all. You know,
It would be
I feel like it's a slight leap.
no, it would be another podcast I mentioned, but but as I saw it, like I started to celebrate the feast in Jewish tradition, and I
So
saw
do you celebrate Passover? Like we celebrate Passover?
yes,
Interesting.
yeah, and I say all the feasts that like are mentioned in the Tanakh are full of symbols and full of understanding who and how God is.
Well, yeah, I think the Tanakh, and from what I've learned, and I hope and I think it's true, is how to connect to God. You know, not necessarily to know who. I guess on my end, not to necessarily know who God is, because I don't necessarily think I could fully know who God is, because God's infinite, and me as a finite creature, I can't understand the infinite, but I can. He gives us a way to try to understand how to connect to him in a way that we wouldn't have necessarily known before without the Torah. But
You know, as when I went, especially in the time when I was here in Israel and I studied the scriptures, I saw almost all of the characters, starting from Abraham and of course the prophets, they were arguing with God. They have had discussions. They and
it's important for a relationship, any relationship.
that's the point. It's I'm not a big fan of religion in the sense that you can do stuff to please God. Let's say to have Him do the good stuff in your life. But when it comes to relationship, then it's different. Then it's like at when we were kids, we played a game in the forest where one group of the kids, they went in the forest in front of us and putting symbols on the ground when you know where to turn, and sometimes they leaded you falsely and then you had to go back, and it's the same thing, kind of in the relationship to God. It's searching, it's asking, it's arguing,
What do you think we're doing here?
and this is the part which is in Judaism much more common, and and I like it. I like it, and I see, especially when I right now when I think to move to Switzerland, I try to pack all the stuff in and take it with me to Switzerland to um, to share it with the friends, that there should be discussion on how anybody sees God.
Do you not see that type of back and forth relationship in the Christian community when it comes to the asking questions and the kind of the butting heads that the Jewish community does in regards to trying to find a relationship with God?
I would say it's different.
How so?
Belief and religion questions are private issues in Switzerland, so you do not discuss them just if you are good friends.
Mm. So what's it like for you being a Christian living in Israel? Because I know as a Jew living in Israel, I love it. I love living around my own people. When people ask me why I love living in Israel, I love living around my own people because for the most part, I know what values they hold.
Mm.
You know, if it doesn't matter whether you're a religious Jew or you're a secular Jew, there is something that has been passed down generation through generation, for the most part, where people really hold by the morals of, we can say, the Ten Commandments. Whether you believe in God or not, I'm not so afraid that the people here are going to, I'm not afraid that I'm going to be walking down the street and I'm going to be mugged.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the only fear mostly I have is from our neighbors, you know?
Yeah.
So I wonder, what is it like as a Christian living in Israel in a Jewish country? Has it been easy? Has it been difficult? Like, what has your experience been? Or do you have stories about it?
I would say it feels like kind of tense, because for as I tried to live in Israel, was standing in between.
Say this again?
Was standing in between.
What do you mean?
Um, if you talk to a normal Palestinian or Arab neighbor here in Israel, especially around the old city, soon he will, and you discuss life with him, soon he will say, the Israelis, the Jews are the problem, mainly.
Is it ever the Israelis or is it always the Jews? Like, do they see us the same? Do they see Israeli and Jew as two separate entities or as one and the same?
Depends. Some of them are making a split, Israelis and Judaism. Some of them they just mix. I didn't find out where how they do it, but for them it's clear. And on one point, all of them or most of them, they say the Israelis are the problem, and there is a lot of hate, a lot of frust, and you can say, "Yeah, but you are wrong," or whatever. But if you talk to an Israeli, And then on one point, it's the same. On one point, you will get to it that the main problem are the Arabs or the Muslims or and I tried not to look at we and them or them and them, but I I have to quote again. But Isaiah says one of the Jewish prophets. So
No, look, I
no,
look,
no,
I'm
no.
yeah.
So, but this is what was one of my biggest motivation to stay here to help the Jewish Olim Chadashim.
The new citizens,
Yeah,
the people who come in from
yeah,
other countries and move to Israel. The Olim.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, helping in a children's club in the old city, Muslim background kids, um, and and again stepping into the split. Isaiah 19, he says, one day there will be a road from Syria or Assyria, which is much bigger and closer to Iran, to Egypt, going through Jerusalem and Israel, the Assyrians and Egypt, they're gonna have a covenant together and it will be a blessing for all the world.
Well, this is one of people's fears, is that people are scared that the Jews are trying to expand Israel and take over and colonize,
Yeah, but
right?
yeah,
Because there are prophecies about that Israel is actually supposed to span much greater than what we have now.
but it's not about being like taking more land or
Right. No,
whatever.
no, no.
It's talking about people or nations, or at that time was a kingdom, the kingdom of the Assyrians, which was huge. The kingdom of Egypt was huge, and they are two alone. They were at war all times, like they never had great peace. And Israel in between was the street where you went through when you went to war.
It's the land bridge.
Yeah, it was the bridge to war, and when you read the Kings, you can see that.
Jews were always in the middle.
So, and sometimes the Jews went more on the Egypt side or more to the Assyrian side, depends who was leading and politics. But Isaiah saw that it will come. There will be peace. There will be a covenant, and there he says, God calls the Assyrian my people, Egyptian my nation, and Israel, how you call it in English, the son that will inherit.
Oh, inherit?
Yeah, inherit.
Inherit the land?
Yeah, no, not the land. Yeah, it's like how you call it. I forgot the name. When I die, my son will be the first.
Oh, like the beneficiary,
Yeah.
He inherits.
Yeah,
He's the
inherits,
inheritor.
yeah, but it's not talking about land or whatever. It's. I think it mentions the relationship between
I don't know.
God and Israel.
It's something I don't know about,
Yeah.
so I'd have to study it.
Yeah, and it's great. It's and it goes on like they will come to Jerusalem and worship God, and it's a picture that it's much greater and so beautiful, especially for that place of the world that I was had a great impact on me, and this gives me hope to work in Lebanon with the Syrian refugees, to help them, to tell them there is hope. There is written long before you and me in the Jewish scriptures. There will be peace. God will make the peace.
Where does your love for God come from? Like, I want to talk about what you're doing here in Israel, but I also want to, like, where does your love for God come from? And I want to kind of keep it, not trying to because you and I are going to disagree on who is God. What is God? Do you believe Jesus is God? This is something that I don't understand about Christianity, right? Is Jesus God? Is he just the Messiah? Is he God and the Messiah? Because I have my thoughts on like I don't understand the concept really.
It's also the concept is it's not so easy to describe in two sentences.
Do not
For sure for short. Um, I I believe the main character of God is love.
What does that mean?
Love
The
is
main character of God is love, like
yeah.
his character traits.
His being. He's how he approaches. What God does is always good. What God does is always towards somebody. He's self-giving, looking for the other, taking care. I would say if you see a father with his kids and they're having a good time, and you can see it.
Right, but
That's the image
I had
that also the scriptures are ascribing. Like
I was at, but I was at. Yes, God is good. Everything, from my understanding and from my belief, is that everything that God wants for us is good. However, I was at dinner the last night of Pesach, the last night of Passover. I was talking with my host about this, and I said, "Gam Zulataiba, this is also good." And we were talking about God, that everything God does is good. And he looked at me, he said, well, was October 7th good? Was the murder and the slaughter of our people good? Was the Holocaust good? Is what's happening in Syria since the fall of good? And he made this statement, which was really impactful, that just because the source is good does not mean that what comes down is good, right? Your father, you have children. If you want what's best for your children, but if your children do something wrong, you'll punish them. That punishment's not necessary. It's for their own good because you're doing it out of love. But that punishment, it's not good. There is I don't want I have to say lahavdil because I'm not gonna compare you punishing your children to the slaughter of of people, but it's not necessarily good, the punishment. You could be good, but the action is not necessarily good. And I think it could be a problem to. It is okay to say that God is good and everything he is good. But I can't look at what happened on October 7th and say that was good.
no, but I would never say that God have done it. Because
You wouldn't say that God let that happen? Because if you believe that God controls the world, then he must have let that happen.
I would say
Why would he let that happen? Why would he let the Hulk, right? These are all these philosophical questions.
yes. I would say if we head back to if God is love, let's say you mentioned that before. There is a relationship between God and human, and I would say, and the main motivation for God to act or to look for a relationship to people is because he loves us. Now, when I have I would say if I love my kids, or no, that's not a good one. If there is love or the possibility of love and which could be answered from us to God, then there must be freedom. Because when it's not freedom, there is no love. You have to have a free will. If there is no free will, no love.
Why? How do you get to there?
Because if I don't have a free will, it's not me who loves God back. I'm just a puppet.
If you don't have free will, it's not you who loves God back. You're just a puppet. Meaning that if God is revealed, then there's no free will at all. Is that where you're trying to get to?
No,
Oh, okay.
It's just it leads to the conclusion that God has given mankind free will because his setting was, according as I look at to it, is he loves. He is love.
Well, so
So he has to give free will. So man can choose, and that's why sometimes Saul wasn't bad, or wasn't
Saul,
Saul King Shaul.
Saul.
Yeah,
You don't think
he was in the beginning. He was a good guy. He was a really a nice.
Yeah, but you could start off good and become the villain.
Yes,
What isn't there?
and now that was his way to choose. David made two huge mistakes. You could say sins, but instead of arguing like Adam did with God, the wife you have given me, you have been late, Shmuel. That's why I, like King Shaul said. David said, "Forgive me, I have sinned." Psalm 51. And he has chosen to. Of course, there are limits to what is free will and so on, but free will has to be there if there is love in the play. If my wife doesn't have a free will, let's say I make her to love me.
You force her.
I force her. That's no
That's
love.
not love.
Ah,
No.
you see.
Yeah,
That's the same.
But that comes back to you. Whenever I've talked to Christians, there's this idea of the God is love.
Yeah.
But no one ever has defined love, what they mean by love. Like, what is the definition of love? You love somebody. It is to love, right? Love is an action.
Yes.
So what is the action? What is your definition of the action of love? Because I know the Hebrew and the Jewish definition, but I'm curious about what the Christian definition or your definition of love is.
Self-giving, other-centered.
Self-giving,
Yeah.
other-centered. So it's to give.
It's to give.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the word in
Yeah.
Hebrew is ahava, which, from what I've been told, the root is ahav, which means to give.
Yeah.
That love is to give, and that's one of God's greatest gifts, is that He gives us life.
In the army, we said there is no bigger, greater honor to a soldier who has given his life to his friends.
So have you always believed in God? Has God always been in your life? Like, you've always believed in God, or did you have to come to the understanding, whether it's Jesus or not, that there is a God and that He loves you and that He wants what's best for you?
I would say,
if that's how you view Him.
I would say I grew up in a Christian home. When I was 16, 17, 18, I had a lot of questions. So I started to dig in. I started to read books on all different religions. I tried to get the essence of what is the main point of the different point of views. And that was actually the question that brought me back to the God of Israel or Jesus or.
Jesus is not the God of Israel. Let's just make that clear. Let's make that clear, okay?
It's a point of view.
I don't think it's a point of view. I think it's very. I mean, look, we have. This is kind of where I think, and again, I mean this with no ill will or anything. I think that saying that God had to come into the world as man to save man is actually a slap in God's face and a slap in man's face. And I tell you why. I fully believe that God made man with the ability to achieve greatness. And if man, with the help of God, especially one man, which we believe Mashiach is going to come, and there will be peace on earth, but there is something, I think, great. There's a greatness to God's creation if it is a man. made in the image of the Ribono Shel Olam. Just like I'm a man, just like you're a man, I am not God. You are not God. I do not believe that Mashiach, the Messiah, will be God. I believe it will be a man just like us, because I think that will prove more the greatness of God, that he doesn't have to come and save us. The fact that his creation is so great that with his help, they can save themselves. And I think that it's belittling God's creation to say that he has to come into this world to save us.
I quote Yoel: "There is no one who is righteous. No one who looks for the good or does the good, and so on and so on." And that's why because of that point, actually, no one could have imagined that God would be or showing up as a humankind. It's like, like you say, it's a slap into the face. Yes, it is. Yeah, it's I would say a slap into the face, but at the same time, it's the greatest step down from kind of humbling himself. And I look, that is the main attracting point for me, actually, that God was not, he made himself so small. And I still, when I try to think on that when you believe what the New Testament says, he was at one time he was a baby. And I going to be a father again. We're
Result
gonna,
of
thanks.
Congratulations.
Receiving our third child in August, and I'm longing for that for that day, because it's and it's so weak. A baby is so weak. How could it be? How and then it's like a light in the back brain where it says yes, but it says Emmanuel, and there will be a child, and so on and so on. And
but as a father, right?
Yeah.
As a father, lahavdil, you're not God. I'm not saying you're God, but let's put you as the father in God's position. You're about to have a child.
Yeah.
You know, what would make you prouder? To see your son grow up and achieve his full potential, or to see your son grow up and you as the father have to constantly jump in and save him?
The image doesn't work for me because I'm not God. And
no, I hear you. That's why I say lahav. That's why I say lahavdil.
No. So But the main thing what I'm looking for my kids is I try to not make any pressure. But what my dream is that they have their own relationship to God. And they shall choose whatever they're gonna choose. But they start to search for themselves.
It's so important.
Yeah, I try to give them my values. I try to teach them how to deal with each other, and so on. But they shall search. Why I don't like the idea of how you describe the Mashiach is because. And it was my experience as well. If you build on your force, you're going down.
Say this again.
If you build your life with your force, with your,
there's a difference. I said with the help of God. We can't do anything in this world without God, whether you believe in God or not. In my universe, and I believe that you live in your own universe, other people live in their own universes, right? We all kind of share this world, but we live in our own subjective reality.
Absolutely.
But in my universe, God is always there. Whether I'm in hard times or good times, the good times, the bad times. But I think I'd rather learn to swim myself than constantly be thrown a life preserver. And sometimes you need it to catch your breath. And I believe God does throw us life preservers to help us catch our breath. But I like the idea that with the help of God, I can save myself. It's not necessarily saving myself because I'm getting help, but I have the power to change my life around. I believe that Mashiach as a man has the power with God's help to change this world around. And again, I think it's a slap in the face to God's creation to say that we need him to come here and save us himself, rather than being a vessel, rather than like using Moses as a vessel, right? Why didn't God just come down as a human being and save the Hebrews, the Israelites himself? Why did he do it through Moses? I think we belittle man's strength when we say that God has to come in and save the day.
Depends how evil is.
There's some evil out there.
Yeah.
I feel very blessed that I have not experienced some of the worst evils. I can't even imagine. But
one of the slogans I always mention is, if you give to a person power and money and possibilities, usually at one day they turn.
absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Right. So, and it's just mankind are kind of broken. They fight each other. What I try to do is listening to people and trying to understand their point of view. It doesn't mean that they are right or whatever, or they are just. But for example, the war in the Ukraine, nobody until now nobody tries to understand what are the thoughts of Putin. There are no talkings. Everybody says he's the bad guy. Maybe he is. Okay, there's a point of view. But we say he's good, he's bad. And that is not how the world works. And I would say we have done great damage to it. But if we would put some respect to it, looking to history, then it would be possible to overcome it. Now, when you come back to the Messiah question, Psalm 23 says, "The Lord is my shepherd." And we are sheep, like you said, you don't want to be. I don't want to be a sheep neither, especially not from a human kind of shepherd.
There's a difference with God being your shepherd and
Right.
and a man being your shepherd,
Right.
Because I think there's
And yeah. I agree totally. But I say the sheep, we are still sheeps, and he has to be my shepherd. He is not first of all our shepherd in that psalm. So no, he says he's my shepherd. He leads me to and he leads me through the difficult time, and that's why it's not all only the help, but it's also to be guided. It's also to listen, and it's also doing. But I don't think the sheep does know where the green fields are. So I say yes, he has to step in. He's like, look,
stepping in is fine. We saw him step in. We just celebrated Passover. We saw him step in the plagues.
Yes.
The 10 plagues. God steps in.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. it's not so much God stepping in, but he still used someone like Moses to be a conduit for him, you know, and through Moses's, and I think we can all agree that Moses was great. He may have struggled with the rock, but there was a greatness to Moses, especially to get a bunch of Jews to follow you.
What you know what I love about Moses? There was no more humble man like Moses.
Well, yeah, they say he's in Judaism. We say that he was the most humble of anybody to ever live.
I
But what does
think
humble mean?
he didn't fought for his right. They forced him to leave his wife and kids behind.
Who forced him?
The people of Israel,
Forced him to leave his wife and kids behind where?
in the middle somewhere. You gonna check
I
it
don't
out.
I don't ever remember learning that. I still have a lot
Make
of
double
learning to
check.
go. I still have a lot of learning to
Yeah,
go.
yeah. But they forced him, and they and his sister and his brother, they made a revolution against him, and it was not he didn't fought back. It was God that was fighting for him.
Miriam Aaron
Yeah,
made a revolution against him.
yeah. They said, "What are
I
you?"
know Korach did.
No, no. What it was not the same revolution. It was a smaller one. But they said, "What are you more special than we are?
That
We
was,
want to have a share of peace."
I believe that was Korach.
No, no, no. Korach said, "We want to rule." But check it out. They had to leave the camp for several days because they had the sickness.
Yes,
Uh,
Saras.
yeah, and Korach they died.
Miriam
Yeah,
had to leave.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I look my understanding comes from there that when Adam was eating from this fruit, whatever it was, but he understood that God is not to trust, because after that he was hiding in the bushes. Stupid idea, because where you can hide from God. But he was blindfolded. He changed the image of God in his heart. He was afraid of God, and they were walking in the garden in the evenings together, right? They came, they walked, they talked, they gave names to the animals, and so on. And he knew God is good, and he knew, but then when God showed up, he hid. He was afraid to death. Second, when God was asking, "What have you done?" He said, "You are the problem."
Right.
And he in his heart he changed the image, the his understanding of God completely. He was like blindfolded, and also of the dead, and he passed it on. And I think we are still blindfolded.
I also think we're blindfolded, right? The word olam, to mean world, could also mean, from what I've learned, means hidden as well. That this world hides what really is. But I'm curious about you. You had said previously that you had studied religions in order to ask questions and find where you land.
Mhm.
Did you study the Torah? Did you just study the New Testament? Did you study the Quran? Like, what did you study, and how did you land on Christianity as your, let's say, saving grace?
Yeah. I would say I started in Islam, went to Buddhism, Hinduism,
So did you study the Quran?
and I read a good part of it. I read history of Islam. Was like kind of this thick book.
You're like, I can't make it through this.
I read books from like life stories from people that were growing up in this surrounding, like I Am Princess in the House of South. Wow, it's a great book, and
What
it's
is this?
so I was on the ground.
What book is this?
It's one of the princesses out of Saudi Arabia, and she's growing up in a heartbeat of Islamic culture, and it's not nice to read it at all. But it's great to have a good understanding of what is going on. And of course, I read about Judaism. And then I started to read almost complete scriptures. Let's say what we say is the Old Testament. I don't like the
It's the
title
Torah.
or
It's the Tanakh.
yeah, the Tanakh, the prophets, the Psalms.
Have you read all of them?
Yeah, I would say
You read through Genesis all the way to the end of Deuteronomy?
yeah,
Well,
yeah. I read almost. No, I read all the prophets for sure. Some of them several times. One day I took the Isaiah and I read Isaiah on one day through, like, to have the trying to have the big picture of his life.
so how did you land on Christianity?
And I would say what I saw is in the different societies, what people are looking for is what I looking for is have a home, being loved, and somebody who tells me who am I.
You need somebody to tell you who you are.
Yes.
Why?
Because normally I would say um, I'm a creation. Like he said, I created you and I saw you before and so on. And as a creation, the name has to be given because it says something over you. So it's the question of identity that rises up, and identity you cannot create on your own. I say it's always in connection to you on yourself, like Castaway when he talks to the to this football Wilson or whatever it was. You know, you saw the movie Castaway. It's great.
Oh, Castaway?
Yeah.
Oh, with
Yeah.
Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his what is his volleyball, soccer ball?
Yeah, kind of.
Something,
Yeah,
some ball.
Wilson.
Yeah.
Wilson. And I think a person fully alone is lost. I mean,
You know,
who
it's
are
interesting.
you?
You know, it's interesting. I have a different experience. When I started to be alone, I found myself. I went on a journey because when I was alone, I had no other outside influences influencing who I am and who I should be and who I wanted to be. I've always been somebody who, because I didn't know who I was, I tried to take on other people's characteristics because I thought that would make people like me. I thought that would give me some sort of purpose. And it wasn't until I was alone that, with my own thoughts and having to figure out, okay, who am I without all this outside interference? And it was the first time I really picked up the Torah and read from Bereshis to Dvarim, from Genesis to Deuteronomy, all the way through.
So
it wasn't until I, quit one job that I was at and was like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing, but I'm just going to have Emunah. I don't even want to call it faith. I just know that if I do this, things will happen because I know God is on my side. But I found myself in loneliness. I found myself in being alone. There's a difference between loneliness and being alone.
Yes, but you haven't been alone. As you said, God is always around, and you have
Seder.
And you have read the scriptures. Thy word is my light on my path. And that's it. But
it wasn't until I was by myself with God.
Yeah.
And it's torturesome. It's torturesome to be with your own thoughts. But it was where I learned that I don't have to believe all the thoughts that I have. And it was where I found a drive, because I wasn't driven by others. I was driven by, what am I doing here? What is my potential? What is this potential that I've wasted? What is the potential that I still have? And in the being alone was where I found myself.
I like it, it's the same what I say. It's the people around us normally they give us false identity. They say you are, and according to, and that's why the main source where identity comes from is God. Being alone, reading the scriptures is the best way to do to find your identity. Yes, I agree absolutely. I agree. I look. I take every month or two. I take one day completely alone, going out for a hike to strengthen identity in God. Actually,
Do you think people who struggle with identity also at the same time probably struggle with a relationship with God?
Depends.
I guess it's a very broad question.
Yeah. Look, I would say God deals with us always in the real identity, not in false identity. And I would say from my experience, that's one of the blindfolding part in my life. False identity, false view on God or on other humans, and it's hard to follow the good shepherd and to hear his voice and to believe that after the valley of darkness will be a table already ready.
I feel like we can continue on this path, but I want to take us down a different path because I want to get into why you're here in Israel. And we mentioned in the beginning that you're part of NGO Switzerland. We had discussed that we can't really talk about the name, of the NGO that you work with. Why?
Mainly so I have more freedom to say what I think and have in my head, and not putting weight on others that are working at the same time. As when it comes to questions around the belief, you are on a very sharp line. In the name of Christianity, people have done bad stuff, very bad stuff. Lately I went into the Crusader history. No words for that. Or as we said in the beginning, when you go to war in the name of the cross, it's done.
But are people worried that you're being Christian and being here in Israel? Are people worried that you're here to proselytize, like turn Jews into Christians? Is that a fear of people?
Yes.
Is that a fear of why not to mention what NGO you work for? Like, I want to ask a question. Are you here to try and convert people? Are you strictly here to help people here?
I would say I try to help people, to bring them peace, but also to like we do now, to share how we see God.
But your action is not. But your intention is not to convert.
Never. No.
Do you see? But you see that as a big fear among
Jews, of course, here? Because there is a saying. The Christians, they get paid for every Jewish soul they can baptize, and so and the Jew loses his Jewish soul if he gets baptized.
It's not true.
So
it's not true.
It doesn't matter.
We believe that once you're a Jew, you're a Jew. Whatever you do other than that doesn't matter.
It depends to who you talk.
No, for sure. But from what I've understood, if you're a Jew, you're stuck.
Yeah,
you can try to go other places. And look, in my own life, I've had searches and I've had my own, let's say, foray into Christianity when I was really searching for myself. I was lost in my early 20s. And I remember, man, I don't know if this is going to get me in trouble with people that saying the story, but I'm going to say the story because it's part of my life and it's part of my journey. It was part of my journey of coming back to Yiddishkeit and really um, falling into, I really believe that Judaism is where it's at,
Okay.
and I have this pull towards Judaism, and I feel like I'm missing something because it hasn't fully, for me, the practice
Yeah.
hasn't fully stuck. So I think something's missing, something hasn't clicked. But when in my college years, most of my friends were not Jewish.
Yeah.
And I had two Christian friends who both were very, into their religion. Both had the same name. I'm not going to mention names because both had the same name. It was funny. So one of them was like a musician for this. I don't know if he was a pastor or minister. I don't know the difference, whatnot. And they were having like a what's it called? They were having a
Service at the church.
service. Sure, it wasn't really a church. It was kind of like a hall that they set up chairs in. And so my friends, like the keyboardist and my other friend came, and he's sitting next to me, and I'm there because I'm just I don't know. I searching for something, and now that, and I've thought about this often. I think it was a setup. So I think because my friends knew I was coming. I think he may have told the minister or whoever it was that, oh, my friend's coming. He's Jewish. So at like towards the end of the service, I can't believe I'm so nervous to say this. Whatever. So towards the end of the service, he was like, if anybody wants to come up and be baptized, now's the chance. They didn't dunk anyone in water or anything like that. He just kind of like put his hand on people's heads, whatever. So people are starting to like leave their seats and line up. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm just going to sit here. And this pastor comes right up to me. And I'm here. I have like my Hebrew tattoos, and he's just staring me down. Anybody who wants to come and convert, now's the time. And just like standing over me, like just looking at me. And I'm there shaking, like literally shaking. And it wasn't out of like fear. It was like, if I do this, I feel like I'm betraying something. But he's just standing over me. And so I'm like, okay, when I got up and I stood in line, and he starts at the far end. He doesn't start with me. He starts at the far end. And you had people standing behind everybody. And one of my friends was standing behind me. And he's putting his hand on people's heads. And he's like, accept the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And they start like talking in tongues, and they fall backwards. And they fall backwards. And he gets to me. He puts his hand on my head. And he's like, do you accept like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost? And while everybody else had like really verbalized this out loud, I'm here being like, but I'm actually saying the Shema. I'm saying Shema Yisrael. And I'm rocking back and forth as if I want to fall, but I don't want to fall. I want to fall. Have you ever seen Jews daven and they do this? And I don't fall. And he takes his hand off me, and he looks at my friend standing behind me, and he goes, he's a strong one. and I use this, first of all, as an excuse back in the day to also not eat kosher and kind of break myself apart from the tradition that I had been that I felt was containing me. But this sent me on a search for God, for what I believe. And it brought me to Israel, brought me to yeshiva, and started to implant. And once I started to really learn about Judaism, about my heritage, it's like, I want to trade this for, like, I can't even believe that I thought I would trade this for the world, and my friends, they're like, oh, you're a Christian now. And at this point in my life, I'm like, no way, I'm Jewish 100%. And there's something in me that's pulling me towards Judaism, and I need to figure it out. Because the other searches that I've been on, they haven't bore any fruit, because I was always searching for what I feel, and not just feel, but what I know about myself now. And it's been quite the journey.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I don't even know how I got onto that story, but no, it was my own. It was my own journey into trying to figure things out. So like I'm curious of how, like, because I don't necessarily see it, but how did you, if you've studied all of these other religions, how did you end up on Christianity?
A main point was, as I saw it, I would say still saw it. You don't have to agree, but most of the religions are, you have a system of doing good, doing bad. And Islam, you have the angels on the shoulders who are counting your good stuff, and the other one is counting your bad stuff.
Making a
That's,
cheshbon, like
yeah,
a,
yeah. That's why you say salam alaikum, which is the plural form. You don't greet the human, you greet his angels.
oh, is that what it is?
That's it.
Hmm.
And when it comes to Buddhism and Hinduism, it's you don't have the angels, but it's always you level up or you level down. You it's very strict, and the gods in Hinduism, you have to be very afraid of them, because it's more you please the gods so they don't destroy you, and if you are pleasing them enough, so maybe you rank up. And when it comes to the New Testament, there is no ranking, there is no good, no stuff. There is nothing. There is just,
I would argue with that, because it wasn't the Protestant sect created because Martin Luther didn't think that what was happening in the Inquisition was right?
okay. Look, you have to split between the church and which went in many directions wrong. Some of the parts are still well. Let's say it wasn't that point, especially at the time of Luther, you could pay to have forgiveness for your sin, and it was just a system actually of the church to gain more money. So the backstory is a little bit longer. The beginning was fine, and then it just turned cruel. Luther said, "Grace alone, only grace will save," and and uh, when you are listening to um, what had one still a great impact on me was, there is the crucifixion scene, and besides, Jesus was a murderer, or kind of an evil person, because he was on the cross. So he was like, he was he was let's say he was a murderer. So he said, "Remember me when you are in paradise." He doesn't say, "Forgive me" or whatever. He just said, "Remember me." And Jesus said, "You're gonna be there." And it's no baptism, it's no confessing your sins, nothing. And I would say it's the one, the main point of there again, there is just love God and your next like yourself, and that's it. And Jesus just added to that, love each other like I loved you. That means give your life for each other. That's it. Actually, there is not more to add to that.
Well, yeah, but I'm at, like, what do you have to, like, what do you have to do in order to, what are there works? Are there, like, we have the commandments, right? We have
Yeah.
the 613 commandments. Islam has its pillars, right? It's 5 pillars. What are the works in Christianity? And if there are no works, how do you justify that away from the Torah? Because this says it can't be changed.
No, it cannot be changed. But um, when my point of view, most of my friends doesn't agree, but I would say when Jesus died, humanity died. Doesn't matter. When he got resurrected, humanity got resurrected. But as a
Do you believe that we're resurrected?
who?
You said when Jesus died,
Yeah.
humanity died.
Yeah.
And when Jesus got resurrected, humanity got resurrected.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Do you believe that we're resurrected? And how has man fallen more since the crucifixion of Jesus than it did when Adam? Because after Adam fell, we had the flood, right? God decided, if it wasn't for the grace of Noah, to destroy all of humanity. So how did humanity fall more after Jesus was crucified?
Okay, this part of how I look to things are still in change, in developing, so I cannot answer all the questions like fully.
Yeah.
But I would say it's we spoke about God is love. If God is love, if this is how I look to it. If God is love, I feel God cannot be alone. So God Himself, and that's why for me it makes sense that He's a triune God. I
The
don't
Trinity?
want, yeah. So I don't want to dive in it. But let's say God is He's a three personhood, one kind of person. So I look to that much more to be included in the relationship between, especially in between God the Father and the Son. So it's much more
You don't like the idea of God being God being one?
He's one at the same time.
But how is He one and He's three?
I could ask you the same. When man and wife being married, they are one. Echad in Hebrew is the number one, but means also kind of united, like whole, like complete. And it's I think it's an endless a road to, as a human being, to get into how God should be or how He is. As you said, He's fine. He is what He is. But already in the beginning says the Spirit of God was hovering on the water. So you already have the Spirit. It's already mentioned, and the Spirit of God could enter a person, like in David, like Shaul, like the prophets, and it's mentioned multiple times.
So you take that. So Christianity takes that Spirit of God, meaning that's separate from the, let's call it, the man upstairs.
No,
Okay.
no, not separate. Especially not separate. As it's much more of a very inbound same character, different person, not but still in. It's hard to understand. They have fought war about that topic. So
listen, people take the first chapter.
The first chapter is great.
They say that you could study the first chapter of Bereshit your entire life and not know any of
Yeah,
it. So
yeah.
I don't know where this conversation of the Shekhinah and him. It's a conversation that I would like to have, but I'm not learned enough to have the conversation.
Me neither.
So let's get back to this NGO that you're working with, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. So I saw God is treating Hagar very respectfully, and she was Egyptian.
Say that again?
She was an Egyptian woman, Hagar.
Yeah.
The mother of Ismail, and he was talking to her, actually, to a woman. So but also then when the story develops, you can see God is always very like he tries to bring peace. Zachariah, he says, I will take the king of Gaza away, and the people of Gaza will be a tribe in Israel like the others. Nobody can say the difference. Great, great. I love it. And I feel there is a great love from God towards the Jews, the Palestinians, the Arabs, Iranian, doesn't matter. And I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part, living the love to the people. That's why I love the Jews, the Israelis, the Palestinians. Doesn't matter. I like to, and I love to sit with them.
So what does your NGO do?
We help mostly the Olim Chadashim. Most of them are, in the beginning most of them were Ethiopian. Now they are more Russian and Ukrainian.
Oh, interesting. So you don't help with like the Nefesh B'Nefesh, or you help outside of America and Canada and that.
We help here, yeah.
No, I know, but what specific?
We bring food. We bring food and clothes to the poor of the poor. Like the social welfare makes an event. They invite the people. We go there. We help. Okay. Second, we have the children education program in the old city with the children club. At the same time, we have education program in schools, trying to to help them not only be influenced by hate the Jews stuff.
You're talking about Arabs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Those are all Arabs children. So.
How's that going?
Good, I would say.
Are they receptive?
Yeah, but slowly.
You seem hesitant about that.
No, there is a saying. It's if you want to change society, start with the kids. Okay, it takes time. If you start with the kids, it takes time. You don't see the change.
There's a saying,
but there is change. I saw the change.
There's a saying, kids are our future.
Yeah.
But I think it needs to be added on to. Kids are the future that we mold them into.
Yes. Yeah. They are influenced by all sorts. And now with all the phones and stuff, when there was the shooting at the City of David, it was a 13-year-old boy. I mean, come on. It was... So who was influencing him? And his father said, we lost control. He got influenced by others. We could not hindering him to whatever he's into. So I see, and especially I love the kids. I love them, and I try to help them to. Once there was a difficult situation, and one of the boys, he was accusing me, especially to adults in the old city, and then
accusing you of what?
Of a lot of stuff which never happened. He was just angry. So 2 weeks later, he came back, expecting that I would throw him out because of what he have done. And I said, look, I know you have done me a lot of problems. I'm not angry. You are most welcome. Since then, he changed. Now he's not the nice kid and behaves like a European schoolgirl or whatever. He's still
he's still tough.
He's still tough, but the relationship is different.
Right. You help change his perception.
Yeah, and then that's the. I would say without forgiveness there is no going on. You have to forgive in some ways. Even though it was just what happened, or if not just, it doesn't matter. You have to let go, and you need God who loves you so you can let go.
Well, whoever is the Messiah, whatever happens, I wish you the best of luck on the next journey. Mazel tov on your coming. We say B'Shah Tova. Mazel on B'Shah Tova, and please guide your kid to come. And it sounds like you're just somebody who really wants to help humanity. And I hope that all the works that you put in to it show fruit. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.